question arising then is, what is the objective of the community? Now, the community is established to develop policies and programs aimed at widening and deepening cooperation among the partner states. The cooperation is broad. It involves political affairs, economic affairs, social affairs, cultural fields, research, technology, defense, security, legal and judicial affairs. If you get time to look at Article 5 of the treaty, this is set out. But you also notice that under the treaty, especially from Chapter 11 to Chapter 27, you discover the area of cooperation. And these are very broad areas. It ranges from trade development and liberalization, investment and industrial development. It touches on monetary and financial cooperation. It touches on infrastructure. It touches on agriculture. So it's a very broad area. And so the committee is expected to develop policies and programs to widen and deepen integration in these areas of cooperation. So that's as far as the background is concerned. In terms of institutions, the way the community is organized, under Article 9, there has been established a number of organs and institutions. And these are the drivers of this integration. The first institution is the summit. The summit consists of the heads of state of the partner states, and their mandate is basically to give general direction and impetus to development and ensuring the achievements of the objectives of the community. So that's the topmost organ we have, and you are also a member of the summit, of course. Then second, we have a council. A council is a council of ministers, and this is the policy organ of the community. And their main work is to promote, monitor, and keep under constant review the implementation of the programs and projects of the community. Beyond that, we have the coordination committee. This is composed of permanent and principal secretaries. In some countries, they are called principal secretaries. In other countries, they are called permanent secretaries. And this coordination committee is responsible for generating reports and submitting recommendations to the council on the implementation of the treaty. So it is a structure that feeds into the council and makes various recommendations from time to time to ensure that the treaty is faithfully implemented. Then we have sectoral committees, which are like technical committees that are established to deal with specific matters in their sectors. Now, of course, as a member of the community, you'll be expected to participate in all these structures, and this is why one of the issues I'm covering under here is the rules of procedure, the institutional rules for these organs, so that you know if you don't attend a meeting, then you're going to affect quorum, and if you affect quorum, then it means certain decisions cannot be taken. Beyond those organs, we also have an East African Court of Justice, which is the judicial organ of the community. I'm sure somebody will come talk about this further, but like any judicial organ, it is responsible for adjudicating and determining disputes and interpreting the treaty. We then have the East African Legislative Assembly, which is the legislative organ of the community, and like any legislative organ, it has the mandate over legislation, representation, and oversight. Now, so those are the organs. And then, of course, last but not least is the Secretariat, which is the executive arm of the community. It has broad functions. When you look at the treaty, you'll find all these functions of the Secretariat under Article 71, but simply put, we can say it is responsible for the general administration and the management of the affairs of the community. Those are the organs, but we also have institutions. Now, in terms of institutions, the number of institutions that have been established, institutions are, as seen in the definition there, they are departments, services, or bodies which are established by the summit, and when they are established, they are given certain mandates. We have a number of institutions as they are set out there. The Civil Aviation Safety and Security Oversight Agency coordinates matters of civil aviation and safety in the community. There is a Health Research Commission to advise the community on matters of health. There is a Kiswahili Commission that advises partner states on matters related to Kiswahili, the teaching of Kiswahili, the learning of Kiswahili, and the development of that language. There is a Science and Technology Commission to promote the development and application of science in the partner states. And I'm happy to inform you that you'll get more clarity on these institutions, because the directors in charge of these institutions are here. There's an Inter-University Council for East Africa, whose mission is to develop beneficial collaboration between the universities, governments, and other organs in East Africa. There's the Lake Victoria Basin Commission, which regulates cooperation in the sustainable development of Lake Victoria Basin. There's an East African Competition Authority to regulate matters of competition as we liberalize trade, especially under the Customs Union. So those are the institutions that underpin the community. And then beyond that, we have what we are calling surviving institutions. These are institutions that were there before the collapse of the first community in 1977. So one of them that is equally important is the East African Development Bank. It's a financial institution that provides long-term finance. Provides long-term finance to enterprises in East Africa. There's a Lake Victoria Fisheries Organization, which is responsible for the management and development of fisheries resources in the East African region. Now, I want to point out that all these institutions are underpinned by pieces of legislation that spell out their mandates and their obligations and their limits. In fact, this is a requirement of the treaty that all organs and institutions of the community perform their functions and act within the mandate that is set out in the law establishing them in the enabling legislation. Now, that is about the institution. We can talk about the legal regime of the community. To the question, what is the legal regime of the community? The answer is that you start with the treaty for the establishment of the East African community. That's the most important piece of legislation we have in terms of the laws of the community. But the treaty is also underpinned by protocols, the number of protocols that are made under the treaty. One of the discussions we are going to have in the course of this week is the protocol establishing the Customs Union. We will also be taken through the protocol establishing the Common Market. There's a protocol establishing the Monetary Union. All these pieces of protocols are part and parcel of the treaty and the integral parts of the treaty. Beyond that, we have laws, which we are calling acts of the community. These are laws or pieces of legislation passed by the East African Legislative Assembly. And after they are passed by the Assembly, they are subsequently assented to by the Summit. And that's why it is important that you have participation in the East African Legislative Assembly by having your members elected. Then below the acts, you have regulations and rules. These are issued by the Council. For example, the financial rules and regulations are issued by the Council under a mandate given by the treaty. The staff rules and regulations are issued by the Council under a mandate given by the treaty. But there are also regulations issued by the Council under a mandate given by the acts passed by the Assembly. Besides that, we have relevant decisions of the East African Court of Justice. And of course, being an international organization, the community is also bound by relevant principles of international law, in particular the Vienna Convention of the Law of Treaties. So that is what the legal regime of the community looks like. This is just like any other international organization. Now, the community can, as I was saying, the community as a body corporate, meaning that it is a legal entity which can sue and be sued in its name, and as a body corporate is represented by the Secretary General. So the Secretary General is the face of the community, and to ensure that the community is given international recognition, it is registered with the African Union and the United Nations. The duration of the treaty is perpetual, so that means that the drafters of the treaty concluded that this is a document that must live forever. Now, in terms of language, you are already aware that the official language under the treaty is English, but this has since been changed because the 21st Summit has adopted a decision to adopt English, Kiswahili, and French as official languages of the community. And the Council has since approved an implementation program, and I know in the course of our discussion this week you'll get to know how far we have gone and what is going to happen to ensure that Kiswahili, English, and French are used consistently as official languages. The community is underpinned by a number of values. Some of them are called fundamental principles, others are called operational principles. But the message here is that as rulers of the community, partner states are expected to abide with good governance, to abide with mutual trust, political will, sovereign equality, good neighborliness, and peaceful settlement of disputes. These are the values of the community. So as a member of the community, all partner states are expected to respect rule of law, accountability, gender equality, and protection of human rights in accordance with African Charter on Human and People's Rights. So that is how demanding membership to the community is. The community is also required to ensure equal distribution of benefits and mutual benefit. And as I was saying from the beginning, the community is people-centered and market-driven. And it's a requirement that partner states provide an enabling environment to ensure that the objectives for which the community was set up, that we have discussed under Article 5.1, are fulfilled. I want to draw attention to Article 8 of the treaty. Article 8 of the treaty imposes an obligation on partner states to ensure that the promises they have taken as signatories to the treaty are respected. One of the requirements is that within 12 months, that is a year from the date of signing the treaty, every partner state is required to secure the enactment and effective implementation of laws that are necessary to give effect to the treaty, and in particular to ensure that legislation, regulations, and directives of the community and its institutions have a force of law within this territory. I think in respect of DRC, that is something that needs to be looked at. It is also a requirement that every effort is made. It is a requirement that you ensure community organs, institutions, and laws take precedence over similar national ones on matters pertaining to the implementation of the treaty. It is also a requirement that as a member of the community, you designate a ministry with which the Secretary General may communicate on matters related to the treaty. So those are obligations that you have to take on. Of course, in addition to such things as having a defense liaison officer appointed to ensure that matters touching on defense-related issues are properly dealt with at the level of the community. Article 8 also presupposes that as a partner state or any partner state in the community must abstain from any measures that are likely to frustrate the objectives of the community and the implementation of the treaty. So I've already indicated that community laws, organs, and institutions will actually take precedence over national ones on matters touching on the implementation of the treaty. The only exception, of course, is the constitution of each partner state. The summation of this, ladies and gentlemen, is that the partner states can no longer, therefore, rely on their national laws to say we cannot implement this by virtue of our law relating maybe infrastructure or relating to this and that. It is no longer possible, tenable, to use national laws as an excuse for not implementing a community law on the same subject matter. Now, briefly, I'll take you through the organs. We have talked about the East African Legislative Assembly. What is important to point out here is that membership requires that you have 9 members from each partner state, and then beyond that you have a minister responsible for ESA affairs from each partner state. The Secretary General and the Council to the Community are ex-official members. But in respect of this country, I think it is important that you follow the Yala Elections Act of 2011 and have 9 members elected in accordance with that law. This is an election, it's not an appointment, it's not an election must yet happen. And I suppose that in due course, if it has not yet happened, the clerk of the East African Legislative Assembly will communicate to you, or maybe the speaker will get time to talk more about this. Now, the Assembly has done a lot. It's a legislative organ. And if you have to look at their achievements, the number of bills that have been passed and have since been assented to and have become law, notorious in this category, you have the Customs Management Act of 2005, which somebody is going to talk about shortly thereafter. The Legislative Assembly exercises oversight, and therefore in that context is able to consider reports and the activities of the community, the reports from the Audit Commission, and then eventually make all relevant recommendations to ensure that they make recommendations to the Council as a policy organ to ensure that there is consistent and proper implementation of the treaty. The achievements of the community, I've already talked about that. Now, the other organ that I will need to point out is the East African Court of Justice, which is established as a judicial organ of the community. And in that context, it times references made to it on interpretation and application of the treaty. And therefore, the wind has been created for legal and natural persons who are interested in questioning the legality of any act, regulation, directive, decision, or action of a partner state or institution of the community, that it infringes the treaty, relief can be availed to you at the East African Court of Justice. The East African Court of Justice also offers advisory opinions upon the request of the Summit, Council, and the partner state. The East African Court of Justice also arbiters over disputes. So, as a government, if you are concluding an agreement, it is advisable that you have the East African Court of Justice as the venue for arbitration. You no longer need to go to London or other Western capitals to get that done. The East African Court of Justice, I believe somebody will come and explain this more. It can offer what are called preliminary rulings. If a court in this country is dealing with a matter and thinks that they need clarity on how to interpret that particular provision of the treaty or any matter touching on the treaty, they can seek a preliminary ruling. The East African Court of Justice provides an opportunity for a partner state to take another partner state to court, or to take an organ of the community to court for failing to fulfill an obligation under the treaty. It is also possible for a reference to be submitted to the East African Court of Justice by the Secretary General, although there are conditions that are set out there. And then lastly but not least, the East African Court of Justice has a mandate to address disputes between the community and its employees arising out of terms and conditions of employment. You don't have to worry about this, because I know there will be somebody coming from the court to give you more details how this can be done. Now, equally important, like we're saying, the rules of procedure of the institutional rules of procedure of the organs. And of course, under the treaty, all organs have the capacity to make their rules, but my interest here is to point out that the rules are binding and certain things must happen before. For example, if we start with the council, in terms of composition, is composed of all ministers responsible for U.S. affairs and such other ministers as the partner state may determine, and then the Attorney General. The council meets in ordinary sessions, which is at least twice a year, and then it is also possible for the council to meet in extraordinary sessions at any time upon a request of a partner state or chairperson of the council. So there is a window if you would need the council to convene for the partner state to request for convening of the council. Now, in terms of the rules of procedure, the council have what is called a bureau. The bureau comprises of the chairperson and the rapporteur. So this bureau is rotational, and as you know right now, the Republic of Burundi is the chairperson of the council, and it's also the chairperson of the summit and all other organs and the other institutions that work under this arrangement. The council will proceed to meet after issuance of a provisional agenda, and this is drawn up by the Secretary General and is transmitted to partner states together with the notice of 3 weeks notice, which is 21 days in advance of the meeting. However, a partner state may wish to, is at liberty to add items on the agenda of the council by giving at least 2 weeks notice prior to the meeting, and at the very least 24 hours prior to commencement of the meeting. So that is that's about the council, but I would need to point out that in terms of what we call quorum for the council, quorum is all partner state representation, and when a partner state is not there, then we have a problem. That would mean that we wouldn't have quorum, and therefore it is important that as a member of the community, you make every effort to attend whatever meeting of the council that has been convened, so that you are able to give it quorum. And partner state representation in terms of the usual procedure of the council means the minister. It must be a minister who has been designated by a partner state as its representative in the meeting of the council. So it is important to ensure that when council meetings are called, you ensure a minister is in attendance or is able to attend. Otherwise, there will be an issue. The council can also meet in extraordinary meetings. That requires 7 days notice. But in extraordinary meetings, you need to know that the council will only be considering items that have been agreed upon in advance. Below the council, we have a coordination committee, which, as we said, is able to generate recommendations to council for consideration. This structure is composed of permanent secretaries responsible for regional cooperation in each partner state. And I imagine that in due course there will be a ministry responsible for ES affairs. secretary in that ministry will automatically become a member of the coordination committee. The coordination committee canvasses a lot of areas touching on the implementation of the treaty, and the reports and recommendations are submitted to the council for consideration. The recommendations, as you know, in the community, whatever is done is based on the principle of consensus. So it is important that when this institution, these organs meet, consensus is generated. Otherwise, without consensus, then there is no decision of the council. In respect of the coordination committee, the quorum is all partner state representation, but in a situation where all partner states cannot come, the practice is that the meeting is adjourned for 24 hours, waiting for whichever partner state is missing to join, and where that is not possible, they proceed on a consultative basis, and the outcome of that, provided they have 2/3 in attendance, the outcome of that is submitted to a partner state that is not there for consideration and adoption. And once that happens, then the outcome is taken to be the recommendation of all partner states. Now, can we talk about ESC Vision 2050? ESC 2050, Vision 2050, so by 2014, as I was telling you, one of the functions of the Secretariat is to take responsibility over the general administration and management of the affairs of the community. By 2014, it had become apparent that all partner states had visions, and the community, unfortunately, only had a development strategy. So the Secretariat, with the guidance of the Council, that was the 29th meeting of the Council, proposed a single vision for the region, and the understanding was that thereafter all partner states and ES institutions would drive their respective visions and strategies from this common aspiration. So the Vision 2050 is a policy document that has been put in place, and it has taken into account the views of all partner states, and it is underpinned by the ESC Treaty, because what is trying to do, or what is being done here, is to ensure the implementation of the 4 pillars of integration. So it is anchored in the treaty, and I need to point out that ESC Vision 2050 is not for the year 2050, but is a document which, starting from 2015 when it was adopted, it's a document, a policy document that is expected to guide what the community does in the next 35 years. So there is continuous engagement with the ESC Vision 2050, and the understanding is that if ESC Vision 2050 is followed to the letter, then by 2050, the community will look different. The understanding with expectation is that by 2050, the community should be in what is called an upper income status. So that is an initiative. The rationale for ESC Vision 2050 is to map out the long-term development perspectives of the community as a collective, because all partner states were consulted on this. Academia were consulted, the business community was consulted, so it had a lot of contributions from a number of stakeholders. ESC Vision 2050 is built on shared goals based on ownership and leadership commitment. And we know the goals, if you look at the pillars of integration, would wish to see a customs union that is perfect, a common market that is fully operational, a monetary union that is fully working, and ultimately a political federation. So there are goals that have been agreed upon, and ESC Vision 2050 is a vehicle to ensure that there is a realization of these goals. So one can say that ESC Vision 2050 is actually a commitment to plan long-term development trajectory or development objectives, and these objectives are cognizant and have taken into account the aspirations that have been captured under AU Agenda 2063 and the Sustainable Development Goals. So it is an attempt to really coerce or confine or integrate or harmonize all these commitments and objectives, and then domesticate them in the ESC context. It is a document that speaks to balanced development. It's a document that is addressing matters of equity, and it's a document that aspires for strong institutions that are responsive to global development issues. I will need to point out that in the development of ESC Vision 2050, an assessment was done of what were the problems in the East African community, including what we already know, poverty, poor infrastructure, and all those challenges that are persistent. And therefore, the vehicle, it was thought, to address those issues and challenges was the Vision 2050. Now, as I pointed out, the Vision 2050 is built on existing blocks. The Secretariat and the partner state experts were able to look at what each partner state was providing. This information is available in the ESC Vision 2050. Burundi, for example, had a Vision 2025, and this development plan or vision was sustainable peace and stability and achievement of global development commitments in line with the SDGs. Rwanda had a Vision 2050, and the vision was ensuring high standard of living for all Rwandans. Tanzania has a Vision 2025, and its vision is to ensure high quality of life anchored on peace, stability, unity, and good governance and rule of law. Kenya has a Vision 2030, whose vision is to make Kenya a globally competitive and prosperous country with a high quality of life. Uganda has a Vision 2040, whose vision is to transform Uganda from a peasant to modern prosperous country. South Sudan had a Vision 2040, whose development vision was freedom, equality, justice, peace, and prosperity for all. So the summation of all these visions is what culminated into Vision 2050. And that's why we are saying that it was a consultative process that gave birth to this policy document. And the idea or the intention is to change the aspirations that have been set out in those country vision documents into reality. So the target of the East African community is that by 2050, the East African region will be a globally competitive upper middle income region with a high quality of life for its population based on the principles of inclusiveness and accountability. So that is the target, and this is of course in tandem with the treaty, because the treaty, as we have noticed under Article 5, is to widen and deepen economic, political, social, and cultural integration. Now, the requirement, of course, is that ESC Vision 2050 has set out what is required to achieve this vision, and therefore it is incumbent on all members of the ESC to ensure that what is set in ESC Vision 2050 is taken into account as countries develop their policies, as countries do the budgeting, and all those things that are required to move the country forward. These are the targets. Of course, you will notice that the base data was 2014 because these discussions happened in 2014 before it was adopted in 2015. So the expectation by 2014, poverty in the ESC was ranging at around 27.3. Now the target is that by 2050, poverty will only be 0.9% of the population. And per capita income is expected to rise from $970, that was the figure in 2014, to $10,000 by 2050. And then the expected job creations, and these are in millions, by 2014 it was only 7.2. By 2050 it is expected to be 115.214. So it is a mouthful of expectations that is important that partner states get time to see how best they can implement these targets and how best they can make ESC Vision 2050 not merely a vision, but turn it into reality. These are pictures from the ESC Vision 2050 setting out the timelines to move from where we are right now to the upper middle income status. Now, ESC Vision 2050 is built on a number of pillars. One of them is infrastructure development. This is informed by the realization that at least by 2014, infrastructure was not adequate and was not cheap. So the thinking is that if you are going to make people trade and people move, then you have to make it possible to access affordable and efficient transport. You have to invest in energy and communication, and that would definitely make the region globally competitive. In terms of agriculture, food security, and rural development, there's a lot of literature about this, but the target eventually is to intensify investment and enhance agricultural productivity for food security and transform rural economy. A lot can be done in this area, use of fertilizers, interventions have been set out in ESC Vision 2050. So those of you in the agricultural sector, this is one document you need to consult regularly. In terms of industrialization, it is expected, or it is required, that manufacturing is given attention, and also you give priority to industrialization. For those of you in the industrial sector, this is one document you need to look at, and look at what has been proposed as a solution to achieve the eventual target in 2050. Natural resources and environment management, the challenges in that sector were identified, and the expectation is that it is time to have effective natural resource and environmental management and conservation. How you do this, again, proposals have been set out in ESC Vision 2050. So for those of you in the natural resources and environment management sector, I think this one document you cannot afford to look at as you formulate your policy documents and proposals for government. The same thing has been suggested in the area of tourism, trade and services, and it has been set out on what needs to be done with the eventual target of enhancing tourism, trade and provision of services. There's a pillar on human capital development. There's a lot of literature under this sector, but the eventual target is a well-educated, enlightened, and healthy human resources which are able or efficient to facilitate development in the region. This is a picture from that text, ESC Vision 2050. For those of you who want to interrogate it, you will notice that that it sets out what needs to be done over time to move from the status where we are right now to the targets that have been set for 2050. I'm afraid you may not be able to see some of these pictures, but it is a graphical representation of what requires to be done. There are two concentrations. One concentration runs from 2015 to 2030, and then there's another concentration that runs from 2030 to 2050. And by concentration, it means what needs to be done, so that by 2030, for example, whatever we have is production-oriented, and by the time we get 2031, we are looking at diversification and value addition, so that whatever is sold out of the country, of the region, earns more, and the process of value addition, jobs are created. So it is a vision, it is a proposal that you may wish to look at as you do your policy documents and as you move the DRC forward. Eventually, you will have innovation and value chains, which will eventually make you arrive at the upper middle income. This is also a picture from that Vision 2050. I'm sure I will make copies available to you before we leave. Now, besides the ESC Vision 2050, we have the 6th development strategy. That strategy is running from 2021, 2022 to 2025, 2026. This is also a policy instrument that sets out the strategic objectives and priority areas that the East African Community should pursue in the next 5 years, and the intention is to achieve Vision 2050. So it is one of those policy documents that fits into the Vision 2050. Again, developing this strategy took account what had been done during the development strategy, which ran from 2015 to 2021. They identified the challenges, some of them which you already know: poverty, poor infrastructure, low value addition, the exports were not competitive. And they have set out a number of challenges that the region faces. So as an attempt to address these challenges, they came up with a 6th development strategy, of course, taking into account all the socio-economic and business environment. So what the 6th development strategy does is to speak to the need and how best the community can deliver on our obligations. And these are not only internal obligations, but also obligations both intra and interregional. So it takes into account the commitments that members of the community have in COMESA, in SADC, commitments under the Agenda 2063, and the post-2015 development agenda. So all these things have been harmonized into one document to make implementation much easier. So by your background, as I've indicated, it is this is the second development strategy under Vision 2050, and the goal for ESC development strategy, this sixth development strategy, is to transform the East African community into a stable, competitive, and sustainable lower middle income region by 2030. And then the expectation is that after 2030, when everything has been done, the building blocks have been put in place, then there will be momentum to move forward. But of course, given the challenges that happened in 2020 and 2019, part of 2019, 2020, it has taken into account the initiatives to enable economies recover from the challenges of COVID-19. So, the understanding under this development strategy is that the objective really is to attain a fully-fledged customs union through full implementation of the single customs territory and enhanced ICT systems. Somebody is coming to talk about the customs union, so this will become more clearer. The intention is to enhance domestication and implementation of regional commitments in line with the ESC Common Market Protocol and other related regional instruments. You'll have a discussion on the ESC Common Market Protocol, so this will also become much clearer. And the other objective, of course, is to attain an ESC single currency. We have talked about the monetary union, and the monetary union, as you pointed out, is about harmonizing fiscal and monetary policy, and then realization of macroeconomic convergence, and the harmonization of those three areas: fiscal, monetary, and exchange rate policies. The sixth development strategy is also an aspiration to strengthen regional governance, political commitment, accountability, inclusivity, and securing peace and security before we get into an ESC political federation. Because the political federation, as you all know, is not an event, it's a process, and therefore a lot has to be done before we can talk of an ESC political federation. The development strategy is also talking about improvements in infrastructure and data services. It is speaking to clean energy, to support and accelerate sustainable regional integration and global competitiveness. It is talking to how best to strengthen the capacity of all ESC organs and institutions, because all these organs and institutions have mandates to deliver, and it is important, the thinking is that it is important that they are strengthened to ensure that they deliver on their mandate. It is also the aspiration to increase visibility of ESC. It is important to create awareness. It is important that stakeholders know what is going on. It is important that stakeholders are able to participate, and it's important that everybody is on board. So how do you do that? You do that through the proposals given under the sixth development strategy to achieve that. Now, we have set out a number of strategic directions that need to be taken for the next 5 years, and these are some of them: regional peace, provision of custom services that facilitate trade and investment, strengthening the productive and social sectors. These are things we all know. I think what has happened is that they have been put in one document and given more explanation. Full implementation of the monetary union protocol. We know that when you have a monetary union, you reduce on cost of doing business, you address the exchange losses, and there are a lot of benefits once you have monetary integration. It is talking to production and logistics arrangements. It is talking to going digital. There are many opportunities there. It is talking to developing infrastructure to support the integration process. It is talking to institutional transformation at the regional level. So these are all aspirations that we are all familiar with, and which, if you want, are really requirements to make the community work. So what are the constraints? Yes, we can say that the ESC Treaty, the Vision 2050, and the sixth development strategy, as they are right now, are actually delivering a comprehensive integration agenda. But we all know that there are quite a number of issues that need to be addressed. Staffing and budgetary resources at both national and regional levels are apparently inadequate to effectively implement the diverse commitments which are required to address or to realize the undertakings under the treaty. So this is a challenge, and we think it is prudent to explore more reliable and sustainable sources of funding. We know that as a constraint, the corona pandemic has had adverse effects at the national, regional, and global levels, and this has also impacted on trade and other initiatives. Yes, a lot is being done to ensure that economies recover from the effects of COVID, but we think more needs to be done. As partner states, we've noticed the slow pace of ratification of regional instruments and assent to community bills. The representative from the Assembly, I believe, will talk more to that. We are also aware that as of now, many of the economies are relying on agriculture and mineral products, and whatever they export is in low-value commodity form. And as a result, of course, first of all, you get less in terms of earnings, and there are a lot of lost job opportunities. We are also aware that as a constraint, there is a delay in domestication of regional frameworks and regional instruments, and this has led to divergent policy and regulational frameworks at national level. This is one reason why stakeholders find it complicated when they are trying to trade, and therefore we think something needs to be done. There has been slow pace of harmonization of laws and policies. There are challenges in institutional decision making at the community level, and so on. So I'm more or less done. This was an overview, and you'll have opportunity when my colleagues come to get more details about this. I thank you very much. I was given 1 hour, but I believe I've only used maybe 40 minutes. I thank you. C'est bon?
CTC, I would like to thank you for your presentation and the overview of organs, institutions, vision, mission, mandate of the East African community. I think this gives us some rooms to start thinking strategically after us adhering to the East African community. I know questions will come at the end of the whole session, but I would like just to give some example of questions that might be coming from your presentation, because I know all along that's exactly what's going to happen in the future. For example, I picked the fact that you have a Lake Victoria Commission, right, to manage, all the operation transactions around the Lake Victoria. For the DRC, we have 4 lakes, maybe more, that we share with some of the state members of the East African community. Namely, we have Lake Tanganyika that we share with both Burundi and Tanzania. We have Lake Kivu that we share with Rwanda. We have both Lake Edward and Albert that we share with Uganda. And at the same time, those two lakes, talking about Edward and Albert, empty into the White Nile, where you have other countries that are not in direct contact with the DRC, but are also part of the White Nile. So how do you intend to, to harmonize, for example, this the work of this commission, Lake Victoria Commission, with the bigger picture in terms of more lakes that are coming with the joining of the DRC into the East African community? That's just one example that I want to see how the ESC is planning to integrate, you know, the more resources coming from the DRC, more challenges as well, right, coming from the DRC. Thank you.
Thank you. As I said at the beginning, the institutions we have in the community have laws that underpin them. And I also pointed out that institutions are created by the summit. And Article 9, which provides for creation of institutions, has left a window open to create more institutions as and when need arises. So one way out of that is to have more institutions addressing the peculiar challenges that you're pointing out. And if, after, of course, many things in the ESC are looked at through study and the information is made available, if there is need, we can look at the existing institutions and see how best the enabling legislation putting them in place can be amended to accommodate those extra issues that are rising out of membership of the DRC. But certainly there will be a solution, because it is possible to have another institution created to address that particular challenge or issue. It's not a challenge, actually, it is an issue. It is something that you can't change. I mean, that's the way the geography looks like. So that's one possibility. Have an institution created specifically to deal with the likes of Lake Edward, Kivu, and there's, I think, Lake George up there that you share with Uganda. Or look at how best the legislation setting up the Lake Victoria Basin Commission can be looked at. You know, when these things were being established, they did not have the vision or the expectation that DRC would be joining immediately, and therefore did not address those issues then. But it's possible to find a way out of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me strengthen what the council to the community has said in regard to the institutions that we have, and aware that we have enormous resources in our region. The issue Professor Saji is raising is very important. Already we have a discussion already happening, and this has been raised by even the chair of the summit, aware that now Lake Tanganyika, covering a big part of now the East Africa, Lake Kivu now, I've seen River Congo and all that. So those are natural resources within our region. And so there is that push to have not only Lake Victoria Basin as it were, but to ensure we have an institution that covers all these water bodies. So I would urge you now, since you are full members of this community, to even put your voice heard and say you want this either an institution created or maybe the one that is existing expanded to cover all these water bodies. That would mean, therefore, we put resources to develop capacity of Lake Kivu, like River Congo, or maybe or Lake Tanganyika. And that will be good for the people of East Africa. There's a lot of economic potential in these water bodies, and it is in our interest to develop all of them. So I think that is point noted. And for the Secretariat, that whoever is in charge of this takes those as comments coming from yourselves, which would help us to implement going forward. Thank you.
Nous avons une devise à l'Organisation mondiale qui dit que à l'instar des autres pays qui vivent la même situation, nous pourrons toujours avancer dans les solutions et les recommandations à faire au niveau du sommet pour que chaque État dans la communauté puisse trouver sa part et que nous puissions unir nos efforts. Voilà. À ce stade, c'est la réponse que je voulais vous donner. Je voulais vous rassurer qu'il y a moyen d'arriver à des solutions durables qui pourraient satisfaire toutes les parties.
Merci, monsieur le conseiller à la communauté, pour votre présentation. Dans cette présentation, monsieur le conseiller à la communauté a évoqué plusieurs points auxquels la communauté est invitée à étudier, traiter et appliquer pour le développement à court, moyen et long terme de notre communauté. Merci, messieurs le conseiller. À présent, nous allons passer à la présentation au numéro D, abordant les points sur l'état de l'intégration de la communauté d'Afrique de l'Est sur l'union douanière. Et cela étant, nous invitons Madame la directrice de l'union douanière de la communauté d'Afrique de l'Est pour la présentation.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. My presentation will not really take that much time. Okay. My presentation is about the integration of the East African East African community under the first pillar, which is the Customs Union, and it is governed by the protocol on the establishment of the Customs Union, which was established in 2005. So if you look at, we are such a big community of about 300 million, and that is a very good avenue for us to trade in terms of what we produce internally, and that is the major reason for the establishment of the Customs Union, so that we can be able to trade, to produce and trade what we produce. So precisely when the protocol came into force, it had about 4 major elements, and that was the establishment of the external tariff and establishment of rules of origin, that is for particularly governing the goods that are produced within, and elimination of internal tariffs on goods meeting origin, and those internal tariffs are what is being used currently by DRC. So if currently you have your own customs law, and we need to, if you are full members, then you will have to eliminate those internal tariffs and implement the common external tariff. Then elimination of NTBs. So under the first objective, we have a CET, which is the common external tariff that has is of 4 structure band, and we have 0% for raw materials, 10 intermediary goods, and 25 finished goods that are not available within the region, and then 35% for finished goods are available within the region. The purpose of the 35% is to protect the goods that we manufacture, the products that are produced within our community. So you can see that in terms of protectionism, the council or the community adopted the 4th band, which is 35%. The 4-band structure came into force on July 1st, 2022, and it is currently being implementable. However, we have a schedule on sensitive items. Those are items that we deem everybody's mic on, please? If you're not speaking, switch it off. Thank you. I was saying that much as we have the 4-band structure, we do have a sensitive list that we deem very critical to our community, and therefore it attracts rates above 35%. It goes up to 100%. Similarly, our partner states adopted the rules of origin, which is 2015 as revised to date, and we also have initiatives to promote or to facilitate SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, and they are facilitated with a simplified trade regime, that is the cross-border trade. For example, if we have to trade between our borders, we do have SMEs that require less simplified procedures. So we do have that facility as well to make sure that we trade across borders. I can give an example. I think between the East African borders, we have Gisenyi, Rubavu. There is a lot of traffic in terms of trade. So what they have done, they have used the simplified trade regime to facilitate the cross-border. So that is very key and very important to regional integration. Likewise, we have adopted as partner states or as a community a common law, which is the Customs Management Act, which was enacted in 2004, and the act actually facilitates all procedures, customs procedures for import and export. So it means that if we have a national law, then we shall have to do away with that national law and make sure that we implement the act, the act for the community, which is the Customs Management Act. We have other laws that have been enacted for purposes of elimination of NTBs. I'm just going by the objectives of the Customs Union, and the act was enacted in 2016, and currently we have had a number of NTBs, around 2,255 since the community came into place for the 2005, and as of now we have eliminated 245 NTBs. So it is very good progress, and that facilitates our intra-trade. You can see that because of the number of NTBs, sometimes we have long queues at the borders, and because of the act and the interventions that is done by the different partner states and the private sector, such NTBs are done away with to facilitate cross-border trade. We have also harmonized and recognized standards. Those standards can also be NTBs. So we made sure that we have about 120 standards, 1,920 standards that have been harmonized across the region. So that also gives an avenue for our traders to trade with less difficulty. We also have the one-stop border concept, and that one-stop border concept actually facilitates trade. It's for purposes of facilitating trade. How do we reduce on the multiple procedures that we do undertake during the cross-border trade? So if a country, the adjacent country, we do have a facility that is utilized by both countries, and the officers are based in both partner states. So clearance is done at one point. Let it be clearance of persons, clearance of goods, joint verification, all that is done at that facility. So it is a very good trade facilitation facility that we have put in place as a region, and it has facilitated trade to saving about 79%. And you can imagine a consignment that would take around 14 hours. Right now it takes about 1 hour, 18 minutes to cross the border. So those are some of the barriers that have been eliminated due to establishment of such facilities. We do have the number of, due to the above that I have mentioned, we have managed to improve or increase the intra-trade from 3.72 billion in 2010 to 5.9 billion. So that is a very good progress in terms of intra-trade. But of course, because of COVID-19, we had a little bit of reduction. However, that did not really stop the trade within our community. The major items that we deal with is cereal, maize, wheat, beans, soya beans, and I think that is what we all trade in as East Africans. Plus, I guess DRC also has such commodities, and we think once we fully implement the community instruments, then it will facilitate the entire community. It is still about how much we have progressed in terms of intra-trade. You can see that we have moved from 5.8 million US dollar to 6.3 million US dollars by 2020. That is how we have progressively traded amongst ourselves as East Africans. And how have we arrived at that? It's because of the number of facilities that have been put in place to facilitate cross-border trade. One of them is the single customs territory. I'm sure we are familiar with it because I know there is an initiative that was started between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Tanzania, and goods would just move without necessarily interventions across the border. So the purpose mainly is to have an entry that is made once, payment is done at the partner states of destination, then clearance and release is done at the ports. So you can see that actually the duplications that existed then, where you have to make an entry at every border entry or at every border point, the facility on single customs territory has reduced that. So we do a single customs bond. A customs bond is where you execute for purposes of securing duty for those goods that have not paid duty. So it used to be more than 5. Right now it is just 1 entry. So with that, we have reduced on turnaround time, which was 18 days for Mombasa to Kigali or to Bujumbura, the farthest, to 4 days, 5 days. And right now with the Dar es Salaam to Bujumbura, which is the farthest, that is the central corridor, still it moves from 25 to 4 days. So it's a very big achievement on our side. So you can imagine how much time you transit from from the port of Dar es Salaam to your final destination. Instead of taking 3 days, you take, 3 rounds. You do take either 1 round or two or more. We have interconnected our systems, and those systems are talking to each other, the customs systems, and this gives instant information exchange. So what happens is, if I'm an officer in DRC, I make my entry, and an officer in Dar es Salaam is ready to receive that information and is ready to release your consignment. I don't need to continuously have officers stationed at every point. That is in terms of, it reduces on costs and utilization of resources that we have. We have the cargo tracking system. We are able to monitor a consignment from point A to point B. So DRC is part of the northern corridor in terms of cargo tracking. So there are monitoring centers in every transiting country, and that gives us visibility of a consignment on how far it is gone, whether it is interfered with. So it creates a bit of transparency in terms of duty payment, in terms of movement, and in terms of time that is spent along the corridor. So that is a very good initiative that has helped us in to facilitate transparency. We have interfaced with other government agencies through the single window, especially those that deal with exports, the plant. So they have integrated their systems to talk to each other once when you're making an entry. Development of regional national trade information portals. Those are portals that are established in all partner states, in all countries, to make sure that all trade data is in one center. It is centralized in that particular portal. And so anybody who wants to make an import or to find out any information related to trade, they go to the information portal and they get every information. So the second part is on what we do with other third parties, and here we the trade relations with other parties. The Customs Union and the Common Market Protocol do oblige the community to coordinate, the Secretariat to coordinate the trade relations with third parties, and therefore we do coordinate in terms of tariff rates, conclusion of tariffs and trade agreements, achievement of uniformity of measures in liberalization, and export promotion strategies, as well as trade remedies. So under this particular area, we have different instruments that have been developed in terms of to facilitate or to guide trade with other parties. We have trade negotiation framework, we have EAC trade model investment treaty, we do have model cooperation agreements on investment facilitation, and these ones, they help the community, they facilitate the community to have uniform engagement, not allowing individual partner states to enter into agreements with the third party, because we use a common trade policy, and therefore we need to commonly negotiate those agreements as a bloc. We have entered into agreements with the COMESA, EAC SADC, which is the tripartite. We have the African Continental Free Trade Area. We have the EAC UK EPA and the EAC EU EPAs and other arrangements. So under the CFT, under the tripartite, all our members, the partner states of Burundi, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda, have ratified the tripartite agreement, and out of the 29 member states, 22 have ratified. So we are saying that our members, except RSS, have ratified the agreement. So we can see that the remaining parts, the 4 countries, which is Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, and Burundi, are concluding bilateral tariff negotiations with SACU, and also the United Republic of Tanzania is concluding with Egypt. So once they are done, then we shall all have concluded the negotiations under the tripartite. The other we are working on is the CFTA. Under the CFTA, all our members have ratified, except RSS, and we have already submitted our tariff offers under Category A and specific commitments on trade and services, but also have developed, as the EAC developed, the regional CFTA implementation strategy. So what are the areas that we are focusing on right now under the CFTA? It is to finalize phase 1, finalize phase 2 negotiations for the protocol investment, competition authority, policy, IPR, digital trade, and women and youth. So we are saying we have because we are part of the CFTA. So that is work in progress, and the next one currently that we are working on is the EAC trade policy and strategy, plus the export promotion strategy, and the EAC, the e-commerce strategy. You know, with the coming in of COVID, we are looking towards digital trade, but how do we do it without proper framework that will help us to undertake the digital trade. So we are currently working on the strategy, and it is at its conclusion. Despite all that we have undertaken and we have successfully achieved, we still have a number of challenges that relate to recurring MTBs. We still have protectionism by the partner states, and therefore creates a challenge that may not allow free trade amongst ourselves. We lack consensus on third-party trade agreements. You realize that some partner states decide to enter into agreement without necessarily going through the Secretary General or bringing it to the partner states for consideration. We have disputes that are currently impacting our intra-trade. They may be political, economical, and majorly those two. We have issues of unharmonized domestic tax regimes, and that have taken quite a lot of time to finalize. And then we have competing national and regional interests or policies. So we also have weak regional institutional mechanism to enforce trade and customs laws. Much as we have these regional laws, sometimes it is very difficult to urge a sovereign state to do something until they do it, because the council has directed, but sometimes some partner states may decide to take their time to implement. It's a very big challenge. With national and institutional to implement the customs union, inadequate involvement of the private sector, but this being a challenge, the private sector right now is part of the sector councils that we convene for purposes of taking decisions. So they have adopted them as observers, but they also contribute in terms of policy. When we are reviewing the common external tariff, they actively participated in the review. And also at the Secretariat, we have established a technical working group that looks at matters of private sector. What are the challenges what policies do they want? So that has really helped in involving and engaging the private sector. You know that COVID-19 was a very big problem to us all. So as a community, it affected us, and therefore we have a problem where each partner state is trying to address issues of COVID-19 individually, yet we want a common approach to deal with the post-COVID-19 effects. So that is all I had to present this afternoon. Thank you very much for listening in. Any questions? You're welcome. Thank you.
Merci, Madame la directrice de l'Union douanière de la Communauté d'Afrique de l'Est pour votre présentation. Il convient à signaler ici que Madame la directrice de l'Union douanière a développé les avantages d'application des protocoles sur l'union douanière au sein de la communauté et ces avantages qui visent comme avantage, faciliter l'expansion du commerce transfrontalier au sein de la communauté. Et ceci étant, nous accordons la parole à Madame la directrice générale de la douane de la RDC pour son intervention.
général.
The proposal.
Monsieur le secrétaire exécutif. Je crois qu'il serait mieux que nous passions aux questions, au jeu des questions-réponses à la fin des deux présentations. Parce que si on commence maintenant, on risque de perdre beaucoup plus de temps. Donc il faut revenir au jeu questions de réponse après la présentation sur l'union douanière. Merci.
Merci. Je ne serai pas longue, mais je voudrais quand même, comme c'est la première fois que je prends la parole officiellement, souhaiter la bienvenue, une bienvenue amicale à tous les participants, frères du pays, de la communauté des États de l'Afrique de l'Est, qui ont fait le déplacement de Kinshasa. Et je me réjouis de participer à cette réunion technique pour pouvoir donner les éléments de la douane RDC dans ce processus de l'arrimage de la République démocratique du Congo à la communauté économique régionale et dans le processus de développement en union douanière de l'État de l'Afrique de l'Est. Donc bienvenue, et comme avait dit le ministre, sentez-vous chez vous, nous sommes des frères de l'Afrique de l'Est, de l'Afrique centrale, et nous sommes dans la démarche d'une solidarité et d'une communion pour pouvoir, à l'horizon 2050 pour l'EAC et 2063 pour la ZLECAF, la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, pouvoir offrir au monde en contrepartie une union qui sera à même de satisfaire les besoins économiques du monde entier. Merci. Donc, au niveau de la DGDA, comme l'a dit Madame a présenté les avantages de l'union douanière, les objectifs qui sont poursuivis. La RDC a rejoint les pays de l'EAC, donc c'est le 7e pays à avoir rejoint les pays de l'EAC, après le Sud-Soudan, depuis le 29 mars 2022. Et depuis là, des réunions se sont tenues au niveau technique avec l'EAC pour voir dans quelle mesure nous pouvons nous arrimer à tous les textes légaux, réglementaires qui régissent une union douanière. Et comme Madame l'a dit tantôt dans sa présentation, cela consiste à l'adoption et à la transposition du tarif extérieur commun applicable aux marchandises importées des États tiers non membres de l'EAC, d'adopter et de transposer le Code des douanes communautaires de l'EAC, de présenter un calendrier de démembrement tarifaire afin d'offrir aux États membres le taux zéro. Donc la simplification, elle a parlé du tarif simplifié. Donc États membres au taux zéro, conformément au principe de la géométrie variable due à l'adhésion de notre pays, quelque peu tardive par rapport aux autres États membres. Nous devons adhérer aux règles d'origine de l'EAC afin de distinguer les marchandises éligibles aux préférences communautaires de celles qui ne le sont pas. Nous devons ratifier par les mécanismes du Parlement les instruments d'adhésion, notamment le traité portant création de l'EAC signé en 1999, le protocole établissant le marché commun de l'EAC. Ensuite, et enfin, nous devons conduire des études d'impact de l'adhésion de notre pays à l'EAC sur les recettes douanières, en application du tarif extérieur commun, et arrêter le cas échéant des mesures d'ajustement et de protection de l'économie de la RDC avec le concours du secrétariat de l'EAC. Sur cette question, des études montrent que avec l'adhésion de la RDC à l'EAC, le marché de l'EAC devient un marché de près de 280 millions de consommateurs et que les statistiques indiquent que le volume des exportations de l'EAC va augmenter de 28%. Ce qui veut dire que l'implication, l'impact de l'adhésion de la RDC, avec tout ce qu'elle peut représenter comme marché, comme produit qui vont traverser les frontières, qui n'existeront plus bien sûr, quand on va faire les travaux pour supprimer les barrières douanières, l'impact est très très important. Et donc, pour ce faire, ces travaux se poursuivent au niveau de la DGDA. En prévision de cette intégration, nous avons créé une équipe sous la supervision de la direction de la réforme et modernisation. Vous savez que nous sommes aussi au niveau de la DGDA dans une politique de réforme, une vaste politique de réforme, et les travaux ont été confiés au directeur de la réforme et modernisation qui prépare la mise en œuvre effective de cette adhésion du point de vue douanier. Et pour mener à bien cette mission dans les meilleurs délais, la DGDA a mis son équipe. Nous avons déjà eu un entretien avec madame. À la fin de la session, nous allons nous rencontrer encore pour définir la ligne de conduite, le plan d'action pour pouvoir évoluer dans l'harmonie, dans la mise en œuvre de tous ces instruments et pour poser les actes d'adhésion. La DGDA, la RDC a l'avantage, avec ce que madame dit, d'appartenir déjà à d'autres communautés économiques régionales comme la SADC, le COMESA, la CEAC, la CEPGL et à la fin le EAC. Et avec déjà ces pays membres de l'EAC qui sont dans le COMESA, nous avons déjà des accords de, par exemple, interconnexion de nos systèmes douaniers, le transfert. Nous faisons déjà l'échange des informations anticipativement. Nos douaniers savent aller recueillir des informations dans le système douanier du Kenya et de l'Ouganda, parce que nous avons des représentations. Aujourd'hui, nous avons 3 représentants douaniers au niveau de l'Ouganda, à Kampala, au niveau de la Tanzanie et au niveau du Kenya. Et déjà avant cela, nous avions signé des accords d'assistance mutuelle avec 5 pays de l'EAC. Avec le Rwanda Revenue Authority, nous avons signé un AMA le 28 décembre 2011, avec l'Office burundais de recettes le 26 avril 2011, avec Uganda Revenue Authority le 21 janvier 2008, avec la Kenyan Revenue Authority le 23 mars 2011 et avec Tanzanian Revenue Authority le 6 juin 2014. Donc, en prémisse à tout ce qui est en train d'être fait, nous avions déjà marqué des pas dans le sens de l'intégration régionale. Alors, comme je vous l'ai dit, des bureaux de représentation au Kenya à Nairobi, à Dar es Salaam en République de Tanzanie et en Ouganda à Kampala. Et déjà, nous travaillons, nous mutualisons nos efforts, nous travaillons dans la transparence au niveau des données douanières, au niveau de la transmission des données douanières que nous pouvons interpréter en amont. Ici, avec nos pays voisins de l'Est, nous traitons plutôt le transit. Donc, c'est de la marchandise qui vient en transit pour la RDC. Et la procédure, madame l'a épinglé un tout petit peu, c'est que globalement, les marchandises destinées à la République démocratique du Congo transitent par les ports de Dar es Salaam en Tanzanie et de Mombasa au Kenya. Les données sont communiquées, de transit sont communiquées à nos représentants basés dans ces villes. Ensuite, bon, la procédure douanière est la même partout. On souscrit des déclarations et on accomplit les formalités usuelles et communes à toutes les administrations douanières conformément aux dispositions du Code des douanes. Et les codes de douane aussi, nous avons cet avantage d'appartenir tous à l'Organisation mondiale des douanes qui développe des instruments et des outils qu'elle met à la disposition des administrations douanières du monde entier. Donc, nos codes des douanes sont basés sur la Convention de Kyoto révisée et les tarifs douaniers aussi sur le système harmonisé. Il est déjà harmonisé de codification et de désignation des marchandises. Et avec Madame, on s'était posé la question. Ils se sont déjà arrimés à la version 2022, comme la douane de la RDC l'a fait aussi. C'est une recommandation de l'OMD. Donc, le problème de transposition, le problème d'harmonisation, le problème puisque nous sommes le dernier pays, je pense que ça se fera assez vite quand nous allons mettre nos équipes ensemble pour pouvoir y travailler. Et donc, après la souscription des déclarations, on applique des scellés électroniques. Ça aussi, c'est dans le cadre des accords avec les pays de l'Est. On applique des scellés électroniques sur les conteneurs destinés au transit. C'est pour leur géolocalisation à partir des centres de monitoring qui se situent dans ces deux pays où nous avons nos représentations. C'est un système régional déjà de suivi des cargaisons en transit. Et puis, enfin, viennent les formalités à la frontière de la RDC conformément aux prescrits de la loi de la République démocratique du Congo. Cependant, nous rencontrons quand même beaucoup de difficultés parce qu'il y a fractionnement des marchandises. Au niveau du transit, et ça c'est un travail que nous devons faire avec nos hommes, avec nos douaniers, les marchandises qui viennent en transit sont fractionnées à la frontière, dans le pays de transit. Donc il y a manque à gagner, il y a perte de recettes pour la République démocratique du Congo, parce que toutes ces marchandises arrivent maintenant en petits colis et qui pratiquent le tarif simplifié. Et donc, c'est des pertes énormes de devises pour notre pays. Le système magérois, peut-être vous en avez entendu parler à Goma, avec notre frontière au Rwanda, il y a des magasins, et là aussi, dans le cadre de la gestion coordonnée des frontières et de nos relations gagnant-gagnant, comme on dit B2B, il faudrait que nos pays partenaires puissent être suffisamment regardants et ne pas tolérer, parce que dans certains pays comme au Rwanda, c'est officialisé. C'est officialisé et nous perdons, la République démocratique du Congo, énormément de recettes. Et là, nous pensons qu'il y a des outils qui pourront faire que nous puissions remédier à cette situation. L'interconnectivité des systèmes informatiques, comme je l'ai dit, c'est fait, mais les données jusqu'à présent ne sont pas captées directement. C'est collecté sur des supports amovibles et c'est transposé dans le Sidonia avec le risque, bien sûr, quand il y a manipulation par l'homme, risque de falsification, risque de modification des valeurs, de la dénomination de la marchandise, qui occasionne aussi des pertes de recettes à notre pays. Nous devons, dans le cadre des engagements que nous prenons, moderniser nos infrastructures douanières aux frontières. C'est un défi et nous avons commencé déjà à le faire. Bon, ici nous parlons de l'EAC, mais au niveau de la frontière avec la Zambie, ce sont les mêmes problèmes que nous rencontrons parce que c'est du transit aussi au niveau de la Zambie et de la Tanzanie. Nous devons construire des infrastructures qui vont nous permettre de mieux encadrer nos recettes, de mieux encadrer nos importations. Et ici, des efforts ont déjà été faits. Je pense que les États d'Afrique sont au courant de cela, avec l'appui du Fonds monétaire international. Vous l'avez certainement lu dans les informations, le ministre du Commerce extérieur a inauguré il y a une dizaine de jours un bureau intégré, un bureau de douane intégré à la Ruzizi 1. Et c'est un programme qui va continuer le long de toute la frontière. Construction des entrepôts douaniers et des bureaux douaniers. Nous avons un accès difficile au système informatique des douanes sœurs de la Tanzanie et du Kenya qui entraîne des... Bon, ça c'est de la répétition. Pas de travaux d'évaluation des amas que nous avons signés. Je vous ai dit que nous avons signé des amas avec le Rwanda, le Burundi, depuis 2011-2012, mais il n'y a pas eu d'évaluation de ces amas. Et c'est un outil très très important qui, quand il est bien utilisé, nous permet de maximiser les recettes du pays. Donc on va entamer un travail d'évaluation, on va reprendre contact avec les douanes de ces pays-là pour pouvoir réactiver ces accords d'assistance mutuelle administrative. Nous allons renforcer le dispositif de suivi électronique au niveau de la communauté afin de permettre à la RDC de mieux suivre électroniquement ses transits et de prévenir et lutter contre la fraude douanière. Je m'arrête là, je ne voudrais pas être longue. C'était juste pour vous dire que au niveau de la RDC, avec toutes les perspectives qui sont à l'horizon 2050, même dans un an, dans 2 ans, avec les initiatives, la volonté politique du chef de l'État de emmener le Congo dans cette voie de l'émergence, de suivre les autres pays qui ont déjà commencé, nous allons pouvoir très vite rattraper le retard et améliorer au niveau de la douane le niveau de nos recettes et notre participation au budget de l'État. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Madame la directrice générale de la douane de la RDC pour votre présentation. Son Excellence, Monsieur l'ambassadeur, secrétaire général de la communauté des États d'Afrique de l'Est, normalement, on devait passer au 3e point. Je ne sais pas, je souhaite, si possible, qu'on passe directement au 3e point, 3e présentation, et à la fin, on récolte directement les questions, une fois pour toutes. Oui, donc on passe au 3e point, je ne sais pas, c'est une suggestion, c'est une proposition. Ok, merci beaucoup. Nous allons passer à l'étape de questions-réponses. Micro-baladeur, s'il vous plaît. Micro-baladeur. Ok. Oui, nous passons la parole dans la salle. Si quelqu'un a... Il juste lever sa main et poser sa question. Merci.
Thank you very much, moderator. First of all, allow me to record my appreciation to the two presenters, both from the EAC Secretariat Customs and also from DRC Customs. And I want to confirm that these trade instruments are working and are benefiting traders. Perhaps as the Secretary General highlighted this morning, the biggest issue we have is that the private sector is not aware about this alignment and collaboration between the DRC Customs and our EAC. And it is important. I wanted to put on record that we had EABC, South African Business Council, we had sensitization in Goma and Bukavu. And I'm happy to note that one of the beneficiaries of our sensitization is here with us. She imports goods worth $4 million from our neighboring countries. She's here at a Prince Mwinja. She even paid her ticket from Bukavu to come to participate in this session, saying we want to see how we can be facilitated. And I think this is a clear testimony, and we want to thank you as a private sector SG for allowing us to come and share insight and benefits of these trade instruments to the private sector. Again, let me note that government does not trade. It is the private sector that trades. The role of government is to create a conducive environment for private sector to do business. And my question here is that, and a number of my members from ESC who are here, from ABC who are here, they want to see their counterpart from Fédération Interprise Congolaise in Kinshasa, so that they start mingling and they share these benefits of integration. So we humbly request that perhaps tomorrow the Executive Secretary of FEC is also here to understand how we could leverage on this instrument to start trading, because trading is happening. Generally, statistically, currently 37% of trade between of total trade of DRC is with its neighboring countries, 9 neighboring countries. It's huge. If just we address information asymmetry among ourselves, we can, within 2 years, we can attain 50%. And that is a commitment from the private sector on both sides. So as SG this morning said, what we need to do, institutions are working together, and there is a flexibility in terms of scope and coverage among institutions. I saw a number of ES institutions here, including the University Council. That is possible, but we need to engage the private sector to understand these instruments. The way the DRC Customs is working with their counterparts in the region, I know they have been enrolling a number of instruments, including which my sister did not mention, including authorized economic operator, including simplified trade regime is working, and the women, when I visited them both in Bukavu and Goma, said these instruments are working and we are using them. But what we need to know is more awareness creation, more sensitization, business-to-business engagement. So I think that is the message I wanted to convey to both directors and our honorable SG, that more effort should be to deepen private sector engagement. But the government already, they are collaborating, they understand how to use these instruments, but more work needs to be done among the private sector. I submit, Chair. Asante sana, tunashukuru sana.
Merci. Nous demandons aux différents intervenants, s'il vous plaît, de faire preuve de concision lorsqu'ils prennent parole pour poser des questions. Vu le temps, et cela va nous aider vraiment. Merci. Nous prenons la deuxième question.
Merci, j'ai le micro. Je m'adresse à Madame DG. Madame, je tiens d'abord à vous féliciter parce que je suis Jean-Marc Lombako, je suis député national. Je tiens à vous féliciter par rapport aux résultats que vous faites actuellement au niveau de votre entreprise. Ça n'a jamais été facile. Nous savons qu'il y a beaucoup de douaniers qui sont contre les réformes que vous menez au sein de l'entreprise. Alors la question que je vous pose, c'est de savoir, est-ce que vous êtes déterminé à transformer ces douaniers ou ce sont ces douaniers qui vont vous transformer vous? Ça, c'est la première question. La deuxième question, madame, je voudrais avoir une idée sur le niveau de recettes de notre douane après l'intégration. Est-ce que ça va baisser ou bien ça va s'augmenter? Et la troisième question, les pays de transit. Vous venez de déplorer que certains pays de transit doivent être regardants par rapport au système de petits colis. Est-ce que ce système de petits colis, c'est un système que l'on fait par volonté de nuire aux recettes de la RDC, ou bien c'est quelque chose qui se fait juste pour permettre à ces marchands de gagner un peu plus de moyens? Mais qu'est-ce que vous comptez faire? Qu'est-ce que vous pouvez recommander, même au niveau du Parlement où nous siégeons, pour trouver solution à ce système de petits colis qui, du reste, est légalisé, est officiel dans certains pays de la région? Merci.
Nous prenons la dernière question et puis nous allons accorder la parole aux madame les directrices à répondre. La dernière question, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup pour la parole. Je voudrais d'abord remercier Madame le directeur général de l'Union douanière de la CAC et Madame le directeur général des douanes Axis pour la qualité de leur exposé, des exposés très clairs et très pertinents. Et j'ai deux questions à poser à Madame le directeur de l'Union douanière de l'EAC. D'abord, la première question, c'est par rapport à la ZLECAF. Parce que dans son exposé, elle a affirmé que l'EAC a déjà formulé les offres tarifaires dans le cadre de la ZLECAF. Et la RDC, nous venons d'adhérer. Et nous aussi, la RDC, nous avons déjà formulé nos offres tarifaires sur base de notre tarif de douane. Alors, je me demande, avec notre adhésion à la ZLECAF, quelle sera la situation? Est-ce que nous devons réviser nos offres conformément au texte de la ZLECAF ou alors nos offres que nous avons déjà faites demeurent valables? Donc, nous voulons avoir des précisions par rapport à cette question parce que la ZLECAF, c'est aussi une zone de libre-échange qui intéresse tous les États membres de l'EAC. Alors, la deuxième question, c'est par rapport au calendrier. Dans son exposé, elle a souligné un certain nombre d'instruments que nous devons mettre en œuvre en RDC afin de pouvoir participer à l'Union douanière. Alors, je voulais savoir quel est le calendrier pour pouvoir faire toutes ces réformes afin de pouvoir adopter ces instruments. Parce que la plupart des instruments nécessitent des révisions des textes de loi. Donc il faut passer par le Parlement. Alors je voulais savoir quel est le temps nécessaire ou quel est le temps minimum afin de pouvoir mener toutes ces réformes législatives et adopter ces instruments de l'Union douanière en République démocratique du Congo. Voilà les deux préoccupations que j'avais à poser pour que nous puissions avoir toutes les informations nécessaires. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Nous accordons la parole à Madame la directrice de l'Union douanière.
Thank you very much. The first question is about the offers that have been submitted to the CFTA, and as I mentioned, the EAC submitted as a block. So we have submitted our offers as a block, and DRC has submitted as an individual country. So what is it? How will it be done? My response will be that probably we shall have to during the development of the roadmap, we shall have to agree on how we are going to align the offers submitted by DRC and the offers submitted by ESC. So from there, we shall have to engage the CFTA for them to know that now that the DRC is a member of the community, then it will require for the DRC to align the offers that were submitted to the CFTA with those that ESC submitted. I think it is something that we will have to sit with the CFTA Secretariat, ourselves and yourselves, and then find the best way to address that issue. Otherwise, as a community, if you're a member of a community, then you have to be part of the offers that were submitted. That is what I can respond on that. And the second question was the time frame for the domestication of our instruments. I think in the next coming months, we shall be having a session to agree on the roadmap, and therefore the Democratic Republic of Congo will give us the appropriate time that they will be ready to implement the instruments of the community. So it will depend, or it will be the outcome of those engagements between ourselves and yourselves to agree on the time that you feel is suitable for you to undertake such domestication within your country. Thank you very much.
Nous passons la parole à Madame la Directrice Générale des Douanes de la RDC.
Merci. Je voudrais paraphraser, avant de répondre à l'honorable député, paraphraser notre ami du secteur privé, monsieur du secteur privé qui a pris la parole. Merci pour les encouragements. Merci pour votre satisfaction. Et j'ai oublié de dire qu'en RDC déjà, nous sommes en train de développer. Le travail est assez bien avancé. Comme vous l'avez entendu, je suis dans la réforme et donc le statut de l'opérateur économique agréé, nous sommes occupés parce qu'à la demande du secteur minier, des opérateurs économiques du secteur minier dans la province du Katanga, il y avait eu ce souci, vraiment cette envie de pouvoir travailler dans la transparence et de pouvoir respecter les règles de rentrée. Donc, le travail est assez avancé pour que nous puissions en RDC développer le statut de l'opérateur économique agréé. Alors maintenant, je voudrais répondre à l'honorable député. Je dis non, ils ne me transformeront pas parce que c'est une question de volonté politique d'abord, parce qu'il y a la volonté politique du chef de l'État lui-même qui veut ce changement, qui dans tous ses discours parle de la lutte contre la corruption. Dans tous ses discours parle de l'abandon des mauvaises pratiques. Donc tout, vous savez, comme vous l'avez dit, je suis combattue. C'est vrai que quand on mène un processus de changement, il y a toujours des résistances. Mais les résistances à des degrés différents. Aujourd'hui, je suis à 9 mois de ma prise de fonction. Et s'il y a des résistances, des personnes qui sont réfractaires au changement, il faudra bien qu'ils montrent leur position clairement. Ces douaniers-là qui avaient trempé dans la corruption et qui ne veulent pas, qui veulent continuer à vivre dans leur, comment on dit ça, dans leur zone de confort. Ils ont créé une zone de confort et qui ne veulent pas l'entendre comme ça. Je pense que j'aurais besoin, justement, comme vous l'avez dit, j'aurais besoin de l'autorité politique à un certain niveau pour qu'on puisse continuer dans la voie du changement. Parce que comme on dit, il y a un début et une fin à tout. Nous sommes Congolais, RDC, 60 ans d'indépendance. Tous nos frères des pays voisins sont là. Et ce n'est un secret pour personne qu'à un certain moment, il se posait la question de savoir si nous étions normaux ou pas, avec toutes les richesses que nous avons, avec toutes les potentialités, les possibilités que nous avons et que nous nous retrouvions, la RDC avec sa place dans le continent africain, avec toutes les potentialités, que nous puissions rester comme ça à la traîne. Et donc, par amour pour la République et arrimé à la vision du chef de l'État, je pense que nous allons continuer, j'ai le soutien et suffisamment de volonté et d'engagement pour que ces personnes-là ne me changent pas. Réponse à la deuxième question. Les recettes vont augmenter automatiquement avec les nouvelles techniques de l'information, déjà avec la numérisation, avec l'échange anticipé des données, avec, comme Madame avait dit, toutes ces procédures, c'est du numérique, toutes ces procédures que nous allons mettre en place, nous allons éliminer ces niches de fraude, ces niches de corruption qui vont faire en sorte que nos recettes vont augmenter. Réponse à la troisième question, c'était le fractionnement dans les pays voisins. Encore une fois, la faute à nous les Congolais. Encore une fois. Parce que la nature a horreur du vide. Quand les pays voisins ont commencé à le faire, où étions-nous? Je fustige encore le comportement de nous les douaniers. Nous étions où? Et ils le font avec la complicité de qui? Encore une fois, il n'y a même pas besoin d'une intervention politique pour ça. La douane, comme je dis, nous travaillons en collaboration. Nous avons des méthodes de gestion coordonnée de frontières. Nous avons signé des accords d'assistance mutuelle administrative. Dans le cadre de ces accords, nous sommes en contact. Moi, je vous dis que je suis en contact permanent avec le DG de la douane zambienne, parce que c'est une personne qui a évolué à l'international, à l'OMD, et nous résolvons beaucoup de problèmes à notre niveau des DG. Et c'est pareil, je prendrai langue à un certain moment, si ces personnes-là qui m'empêchent d'avancer me laissent le temps de me déplacer pour aller voir le DG du Rwanda, aller le rencontrer, aller rencontrer le DG du Burundi et les autres, parler franchement et dire que nous devons développer des relations gagnant-gagnant, que chaque pays a droit à ses recettes, que le Burundi prenne ses recettes, que la RDC, et ça, les problèmes vont se régler. C'est juste une question d'engagement et aussi de la maîtrise de la question de son domaine. Je pense que j'ai suffisamment d'outils pour pouvoir mettre fin à ces mauvaises pratiques.
Ok, merci. Nous accordons la parole à Monsieur le professeur.
Oui, merci. Je voulais juste peut-être compléter et rebondir là où Madame la DG s'est arrêtée. Au niveau de l'accompagnement, comme vous savez, comme elle a dit, le chef de l'État accompagne complètement toutes les pratiques de lutte contre la corruption, contre la fraude, contre la contrebande. Je pense que cela se manifeste aujourd'hui par les résultats, les chiffres au niveau des recettes que nous sommes en train de faire. Bien sûr, il y a beaucoup d'efforts à fournir, ça nous le savons, n'est-ce pas? Et cet effort, je pense que ce n'est pas seulement à la DGDA de le faire, ce n'est pas seulement au gouvernement, mais aussi vous-même, l'Assemblée nationale. Souvenez-vous que vous faites quand même partie de cette intégration parce que c'est vers vous que le gouvernement est allé pour avoir les instruments de ratification, n'est-ce pas? Donc c'était une façon d'impliquer le Congrès, donc l'Assemblée nationale et le Sénat, n'est-ce pas, à tout ce mouvement global du pays en intégrant donc la communauté d'Afrique de l'Est. Donc je pense que l'Assemblée nationale ou le Sénat nous aideront généralement par des conseils, par des contrôles, parce que je crois que c'est l'organe de contrôle du gouvernement qui nous permettra à en fait améliorer le travail dans le sens de cette lutte contre la corruption. Deuxièmement, comme vous le savez, nous avons quand même 9 pays voisins. Nos frontières sont des milliers de kilomètres que nous partageons avec des pays voisins. Du côté donc, de l'Est du pays, là où nous intégrons à la Communauté d'Afrique de l'Est, c'est aussi cet exercice consiste à découvrir comment les pays de l'Afrique de l'Est ont fait pour qu'aujourd'hui nous puissions parler d'un bloc économique le mieux intégré et la croissance économique dans plusieurs de ces pays. Donc cet exercice nous sert à apprendre leurs pratiques et voir comment est-ce que nous pouvons ajuster de notre côté. Ce n'est pas que nous y allons seulement parce que nous avons à donner, mais nous avons aussi beaucoup à apprendre. Si les marchandises qui arrivent au Rwanda, qui arrivent en Ouganda, passent comme par Dar es Salaam, ou le port de Dar es Salaam comme le port de Mombasa, alors qu'est-ce qui est fait pour qu'aujourd'hui l'Ouganda, pour que le Rwanda connaisse ses croissances économiques, arrive à stopper ou ralentir, si je peux dire ainsi, si pas réduire de manière drastique la corruption et la fraude, que ce soit à l'import comme à l'export. Alors, apprenons de nos frères et sœurs pour que nous puissions voir comment l'adapter à nos réalités, l'adapter à nos lois pour permettre une meilleure croissance de notre pays. Donc, nous pensons que cette intégration nous aide à entrer dans ce flot de croissance économique que plusieurs pays de l'Afrique de l'Est sont en train de connaître aujourd'hui. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Oui, nous passons à la deuxième série de questions, de 3 questions, et parce que sont liées à la contrainte du temps. Nous accordons la parole. Les micro-baladeurs. Micro-baladeurs, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, modérateur, pour la parole. Je vais m'acquitter aussi du même devoir de féliciter les 2 directeurs généraux de l'Union douanière et également de la DGDA pour la clarté de leurs exposés. J'ai quelques petites questions. Nous sommes amarrés maintenant à l'Union douanière. En cas de différend commercial, nous allons nous référer au dispositif de l'OMC ou nous allons nous référer au dispositif de RDC. 2. Pour les PME, Madame, vous avez parlé de fractionnement de marchandises. Nous avons l'accord simplifié RECOS, où nous avons parlé de la politique de groupage. La RDC convenu avec l'Ouganda, avec le Burundi, avec les autres, pour un volume de $500. Et les autres pays imposent $2000. Nous n'avons pas un compromis. Mais qu'est-ce qui se passe? Le fractionnement est engagé dans les autres pays de l'EAC. On fractionne, on fait passer maintenant sous forme de politique de groupage. Madame de l'Union douanière de la EAC est-elle au courant de ce programme RECOS? Pourquoi il n'est pas respecté dans ce pays? En cas de différend commercial, l'Union douanière a parlé de 1200 normes adoptées. La RDC, nous sommes à environ 1600. Ces normes sont des directives. Lesquelles de normes nous allons appliquer dans le cadre de la facilitation de commerce? Est-ce qu'on a harmonisé? Enfin, pour l'impact. Madame, vous avez dit qu'il y a des études des impacts. Est-ce que ces études nous permettent d'avancer? Est-ce que ça n'aura pas de répercussions? Ou comment vous pensez vous ajuster? Et l'union douanière, pourquoi? Par exemple, en comparant l'Union européenne, c'est un traité. Pourquoi nous avons choisi un accord commercial et régional? Enfin, les 16 et les 17 septembre, va se régler à Londres une grande conférence sur la circulation de conteneurs maritimes. Les dispositions que nous allons prendre à Londres vont-ils être opposables à l'EAC ou alors l'EAC va toujours continuer à vaguer sur des rigides solides le paquet qu'elle a adopté jusqu'à ce moment? J'ai dit merci.
Oui, nous accordons la parole à son Excellence, Messieurs.
Merci. Merci beaucoup. C'est honorable Tumba Chabola Dinto. Moi, je voudrais juste partager mes inquiétudes avec Madame de l'Union douanière. Et mes inquiétudes sont partagées par tous les Congolais. Madame, vous êtes certain que l'Union peut avoir lieu dans un climat où il y a la méfiance entre États? Comment nous allons réaliser une union douanière pendant qu'il y a certains voisins avec qui nous ne faisons pas confiance? Pendant que la partie orientale, quand nous avons adhéré à l'EAC, la population habitant l'Est du pays a applaudi de deux mains pour profiter de l'ensemble d'avantages comme d'autres populations. Malheureusement, quelques temps après, nous avons trouvé que l'autre pays a été agressé. Et cela va-t-il contribuer à améliorer, à permettre l'intégration, ou ça va retarder totalement l'intégration? Sans la RDC déstabilisée dans sa partie orientale, peut-elle être contente d'appartenir à une union avec des voisins qui l'agressent? Merci.
D'intervenir, cher honorable, parce que, encore une fois, je vous l'ai dit, si nous avions un problème avec la méfiance, comme vous êtes en train de le dire, je pense que quand le gouvernement a approché l'Assemblée nationale pour demander les instruments de ratification, c'est là que ce débat devait se trouver. Nous ne sommes plus à ce stade-là. Vous aviez eu votre temps. Nous sommes passés à l'hémicycle, j'ai accompagné le VPM, n'est-ce pas? Nous étions à l'hémicycle de l'Assemblée nationale. Ils avaient siégé en majorité. Il y avait plus de 374 députés, n'est-ce pas, qui ont eu le temps de débattre, n'est-ce pas? Alors, cette question n'est pas adressée à la communauté d'Afrique de l'Est, elle devait être adressée au gouvernement congolais ou encore au chef de l'État. Ça, c'est d'une part. D'autre part, l'union douanière dont il est question ici, pendant que vous et moi, nous sommes en train de débattre sur la question, je vous confirme que nos communautés de l'Est du pays continuent à faire des transactions avec l'Est ou la région de l'Est, de la communauté d'Afrique de l'Est. N'est-ce pas? Donc, méfiance, c'est bien d'en parler comme nous sommes assis ici, à Kinshasa, dans une salle climatisée, pendant que nos commerçants, nos hommes d'affaires, continuent à interagir avec leurs contreparties. N'est-ce pas? Nous sommes ici pour savoir comment accompagner ceux-là de nos Congolais qui sont justement en train de faire des affaires, qui sont dans le commerce avec la communauté d'Afrique de l'Est. S'il y a des choses à ajuster, vous les hommes de loi, s'il y a des choses à ajuster au niveau de la loi, revoir la loi, d'accord. Si vous pensez que c'est la communauté d'Afrique de l'Est qui devra ajuster ces lois, eh bien, il existe un parlement, une assemblée législative de la communauté. C'est là où les parlementaires qui représentent la RDC auront à aller bouger les choses, faire changer les choses. Mais je m'excuse, mais le contexte ne s'y prête pratiquement pas, ce genre de questions. Merci, honorable.
Si je peux ajouter quelque chose, comme je vous ai dit, j'ai eu la chance d'évoluer à l'international. Et quand il y a eu les débuts des pourparlers pour la création de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, avec des 2005, la guerre, on a mis fin à la guerre grâce à l'union douanière. Donc, à travers le commerce, par les efforts que nous sommes en train de fournir maintenant, nous pouvons mettre fin à la guerre. Parce que nous privilégions, comme l'a dit un des ambassadeurs qui était intervenu ce matin, nous pouvons mettre fin à la guerre en pensant dans tout ce que nous faisons au bien-être de nos populations. C'est la finalité. Et donc, au lieu de venir avec l'esprit de tel m'a fait mal et comment, pourquoi, non, par le commerce, par la coopération, par des gens de bonne volonté qui sont ici autour de la table, nous pouvons mettre fin à la guerre grâce à l'union douanière, grâce à la ZLECAf. Je l'avais retenu de cette personne et c'est l'histoire qui ne fait que se répéter.
Il y avait une question derrière, une série de questions. Je vais peut-être, avec votre permission, madame, juste anticiper. Pour ce qui est de la politique de groupage, à notre niveau, donc au niveau politique, nous pensons que, encore une fois, rejoindre la communauté d'Afrique de l'Est sous-entend l'harmonisation des textes, que ce soit nationaux vis-à-vis des textes de la communauté, qui régissent la communauté. Donc, s'il y a une politique qui n'est pas favorisée au niveau de la communauté d'Afrique de l'Est, là où il y a des chiffres en termes de dépenses qu'il faut payer, $500 ici, $2000 de l'autre côté, c'est pour ça que nous sommes là, c'est pour ça que nous sommes membres, pour pouvoir voir comment aligner les procédures, aligner les lois nationales vis-à-vis de la communauté d'Afrique de l'Est. Mais je laisse bien sûr à madame le choix d'y répondre, parce qu'elle est la technicienne.
Merci. Je ne pourrais qu'abonder dans le même sens. Nous sommes dans la construction, dans une démarche de construction et dans une démarche d'innovation. Et tout ne peut s'obtenir que par le consensus, par le dialogue. Et donc c'est un problème réel qui existe. Il y a eu des hommes à un certain moment qui n'ont pas respecté les règles. Maintenant, il suffira de mettre le problème sur la table et de pouvoir trouver un compromis. On évolue dans ce sens-là. Je pense que le problème pourra être réglé. Encore une fois, pas le poser de manière tel m'a fait mal, tel a pris telle initiative, mais quelle est votre responsabilité dans ce qui est arrivé? Merci.
Ok, merci. Je pense que nous avons épuisé le point retenu par rapport au... Oh, il y a une question. Ah, ok, madame, vous avez la parole.
Thank you very much. I will just respond to one question because that is where my competence is. So the question about consolidation, of course the customs law allows consolidation where it is, where importers are not able to maybe import a certain quantity of goods, so they put themselves together and their consignment is included on one manifest. But on clearance, everyone has to make an entry for the goods that they have imported. And it is usually done at the point of entry. So when it is done, customs is very clear that consignment A is for Flavia, another consignment is for Blandine, maybe, and then the entries that are made, you pay taxes according to your importation. But in terms of simplified trade regime, especially for cross-border trade, we do, our law speaks of 2,000 goods that are not more than $2,000. So if you have 500, I think there is need for amendment because we have already increased the threshold to 2,000. That is if you start the implementation of the customs union instruments. So we clearly have regulations that relate to the $2,000, and any cross-border that is carrying goods that are not more than 2,000, then you will get a simplified trade regime. Thank you. The other question, the first question, I didn't get it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Merci. Je pense que... Ok, merci. Je pense que chacun de nous a été éclairé par rapport à l'état de l'intégration de la communauté sur l'union douanière. Nous pouvons à présent passer à la présentation de l'état de l'intégration de la communauté sur le marché commun. Et cela étant, ok, merci. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, permettez-moi d'accorder la parole à Monsieur le mandataire spécial et Son Excellence Monsieur le Président de la République pour vous entretenir pendant quelques minutes et puis nous allons libérer ou lever la séance. Merci.
Oui, rassurez-vous, j'en prendrai quelques secondes. Je voudrais juste dire que il serait peut-être mieux, vu l'importance du sujet qui concerne le marché commun, que nous puissions peut-être ajourner pour la soirée. Comme ça, on a quand même le temps de digérer tout ce qui a été fait, tout ce qui a été dit aujourd'hui. Et demain matin, nous pourrons commencer par ce point important, parce que je sais qu'après le marché commun, il s'agira de parler du mouvement des personnes et des biens. Alors tout ça, c'est des sujets complexes qui demandent que nous ayons quand même un esprit frais. Probablement, on aurait dû en parler peut-être après le lunch. On a beaucoup d'énergie, mais pour le moment, je crois que l'énergie est plutôt à l'atterrissage. Donc, je vous propose que nous puissions nous arrêter là pour aujourd'hui. Et demain, il est prévu la première séance, début de séance à quelle heure? 9h 9h du matin. Voilà, donc merci, et encore une fois merci au secrétaire général, merci aux dames des douanes, de la DG ainsi que la directrice de la Communauté d'Afrique de l'Est, et à vous aussi, et à demain. Merci.